Thank you everyone for joining RevUP week 12. This is the last RevUP, but this RevUP, we talk about title and we talk about the closing process for our transaction. And I'm going to push the title portion next week because I have Andrew Helgeson with Fidelity Title who's going to join us for that. And we're going to take a break through summer on RevUP as people are normally busy and want to enjoy the sun rather than join these meetings. But I have another piece I'm going to add today to kind of fill some time. But I was talking to Chrissy about this. It's kind of a way I keep track of my transactions. So we're going to go over a lot of fun stuff. I do want to preface, and Rachel, if you can put this in the notes in this email, we do have 2 important meetings coming up. And then again, we're going to take a break for the rest of summer, at least until August or so. Next Tuesday, we have a meeting with Seth Goodstein, who's a real estate attorney in our office. All he does is real estate. And he told me about a few horror stories that has happened recently where real estate agents have been getting bad advice in regards to tenants being in a home and so on, and sellers or buyers have been getting screwed because of some new landlord-tenant laws in Washington. And so next Tuesday is a really important meeting. It's gonna be a quick one, probably 20, 30 minutes. We're gonna talk about some changes to landlord-tenant laws and how that affects us when we're buying a home or selling a home. Really important meeting. If you can't make it next Tuesday at 1 o'clock, please try and watch the video. It's really, really important. It's going to be a big CYA meeting. And then I already prefaced it, but next Thursday, we're going to have just another 30-minute meeting just to talk about title, because we get this question all the time where title, we request title from the title company and they send us this long document. We're like, cool, I don't know what any of this means. Or as a buyer, they're like, okay, they just sent me the title report. I don't know what any of this means. And so Andrew Helgeson is going to kind of help translate title documents and let you know as a real estate broker what you should be looking for and how to kind of go through it. So that's gonna be next Thursday.
Okay.
And
I'm excited for that.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay. Trying to share my screen. Should have been more prepared. Dun, dun, dun.
You have the ability to share your screen, yeah?
I sure do.
I just want to make sure.
Okay, welcome to RevUP. Last week. Okay, today as I said, we're talking about closing the sale. I'm going to skip half the meeting because we're going to talk about that half of the meeting with Andrew next week. So skip. Okay, so that's all past the title stuff. Okay, this is a brief timeline of a transaction. Okay, so we get mutual acceptance. After mutual acceptance, the buyer has, we know most of this, but this is just good to see these timelines. And this is a good, we have documents like this that you can share with your clients to prepare them, but this is how a timeline works. We get mutual acceptance, okay? The buyer has 2 days to deliver earnest money. That's obviously negotiable. They can do less or more. Reminder, to receive earnest money, that's not mail in. If they're mailing in a check, that is when escrow company receives it, okay? From there, they have an inspection timeline. Reminder, computation of time, anything 5 days or less does not include weekends and holidays. Anything 6 days or more does include weekend and holidays. The only exception to that is if you have a 7-day inspection timeline and you got mutual acceptance on a Sunday, 7 days from Sunday is the next Sunday, and a due date cannot fall on a weekend or a holiday. So it would bounce to the next weekday, right? Really important to remember these timelines when you have holidays too. So like last week was Monday, or this Monday was Memorial Day. That makes more sense. And so if you had an inspection response that you thought was due on Monday, it would actually be due on Tuesday, okay? So let's say it's 7-day inspection timeline. They have 7 whole, days, regardless of business, regardless of if they're business or weekend days, to deliver their inspection response. From there, it's a negotiation on the inspection. I've gone through this a lot with a lot of you guys, but normally what happens is the buyer says, hey, we want you to do X, Y, and Z. And then you talk to the seller and the seller's like, how about I do X and Y, but not Z? Or how about instead I give them $2,500 to their closing costs, and you send that back to the buyer, and eventually you agree on something. Here's something really important to remember. I'm going to show you guys this. Nope, I didn't mean 35R. Well, let's look at the 35R too. We're going to look at both. Okay, so on an inspection addendum, there are multiple timelines, and these timelines are really, really important to remember. Okay, so the first timeline is how many days you have to deliver your first inspection response as a buyer. It's 9 p.m. on the computation time, meaning it has to be in the buyer's, the listing broker and the listing firm's email by 8:59. If you don't send it, if it is not signed and in their inbox by 8:59, your inspection is waived. It's really important. You can't miss that. The second timeline is a great tool that I use. This is probably, I shouldn't say this publicly, but whatever. I use this often, probably 1 out of 4 transactions. So what I'll do is I'll put a really short timeline here. And my intention is absolutely to get my inspection done in 2 days. But what happens on inspections, almost every time the inspector is going to say 1 or 2 or 3 things that they're like, hey, the roof looks old, but I'm not a roofer, so you should get a second opinion. If you get that in writing, you can submit that to the listing broker and check this box on the 35R. Give me a second, this one right here. And it says you get additional time for additional inspections due to an inspector's advice, right? It's essentially a free extra few days. So I'll normally do like 3 days here or 2 days here and then another 3 days here. So I always tell my buyer, hey, if we can't get all the information we need within 3 days, we'll just get another 3 days. And that automatically extends it. You don't need the seller to approve that. The next timeline is how fast the seller has to respond to you, which is normally 3 days if left blank. Important to note this, the seller does not have to respond, okay? So today is Thursday, you send your inspection response. So the seller now has 3 days to respond to you. Friday, skip Saturday and Sunday, so then Monday, Tuesday. They have until 9 p.m. on Tuesday. Now, if the seller doesn't respond on Tuesday, that means they've essentially responded by saying no. No response is a no. Does that make sense? Last one, this is the one I really want to show you guys that's super, super important. We now have 3 days, if we're representing the buyer, to respond to the seller's response, okay? So again, you as the buyer's agent, you say, hey, we want X, Y, and Z fixed. The seller says, we'll fix X and Y, but not Z. Now the buyer can say, okay, cool, we're good with that. Let's just accept it. Or they can say, okay, how about you fix X and Y, but you give us $1,000 for Z. But the thing is, you don't have 3 days to send that in. You have 3 days to agree upon that with the seller. So the timeline doesn't continue. It stops there. So now the seller sends their response on Tuesday. We have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, not to send a response, but to be done with the inspection timeline. Done. Meaning we have to have something signed by the buyer and the seller that says exactly what the seller is going to do in order to satisfy the inspection. And again, if you do not have something signed by 9 p.m. sent and delivered to the listing broker and the listing firm by 9 p.m., your inspection contingency is waived. So really important. What I do, I'm going to show you guys my spreadsheet in a little bit. When I get something pending, I go into my calendar and I put this initial timeline on my calendar. Inspection, response, due, Christy Hall, right? If Christy was my buyer, right? And I have those all over my calendar. Then if I extend, I put another one for 3 days from then, 3 business days from then. Inspection, response, due. Then I put another one for when I send it, seller response due. And then when the seller sends it, I put another one on my calendar. Final inspection response need to be done, however you want to phrase it, but you just can't forget it because it could be catastrophic. It could be really, really huge. I mean, there are sometimes you find like a sewer's collapsed and the roof is, gone. You need to either rescind or agree on something by the end of those timelines, or else it's done.
So Isaac, if the seller doesn't respond, said they have 3 days, sometimes they don't respond. Is that the end of the agreement, or you do have 3 days to cancel at that point?
Exactly. You have 3 days to cancel or try again, right? So you say, hey, seller, we want X, Y, and Z done. Seller doesn't respond. So now Wednesday morning, we're like, okay, they didn't respond, which means they did respond. They said no. Normally there's some communication, right? Normally you're not like in the dark. You've talked to the listing broker and but then you can go back and say to your buyer, okay, they said no. What do you want to do? And they say, okay, how about we just ask for X and Y? Forget about Z. We're fine with that. And we go back and we say, hey, how about just X and Y? And they say, no. Or they say, how about $2,000, right? But the point is, after that third timeline, it has to be done.
Okay.
Cool. So after
hey, Isaac, can I add one more thing to that? And that's that those time periods are also meant to be time for you to facilitate negotiations. So instead of just like filling something out and sending it as fast as you can, it's important to utilize those 3 days to talk to the other broker and
also agree with that.
Make suggestions and kind of get on the same page, and then put it in writing and send it to be signed.
Yeah, don't be, I completely agree with you. I'm not contradicting you. Don't be annoying, but yeah, if I'm sending my inspection response today, I'm not going to call them tonight and say, hey, are we going to get a yes? Right. But what Sarah is saying is Friday night, tomorrow night, if you haven't heard anything, I'd call a listing broker and say, hey, just want to make sure you got the inspection response. Any questions? And they might say, yeah, we're getting quotes on X and Y because we're not sure how much that's going to cost. Cool. Sounds good. I'll leave them alone on the weekend. I'll call them Monday again and say, hey, how are we looking? Any concerns? Well, our concern is they definitely don't want to do Z, but they're still looking into X and Y. Okay, cool. And then I normally will text them again on Tuesday and like, how are things looking, right? Don't be annoying, but I completely agree with you. Don't wait till Tuesday night to be like, oh, I guess they're not doing anything. Like, stay in touch with them. And if they say we're getting quotes, I'm not sure I'll call them on Monday too. I'll probably they're getting quotes. Quotes take a while to get a contractor out there to figure it out. So yeah, completely agree. Stay in touch with them, especially on that third timeline. That should be 3 fluid days of constant interaction with the listing broker. Like, okay, how about this? Listing broker says, I'll talk to my seller. And it's normally verbal at that point. You're like, okay, my buyer will do this. What do you think about this? Seller says, how about this? And you're kind of going back and forth. And then you put it in writing. Obviously, once you guys verbally, they're like, yeah, we're good with that. Buyer's good with it. Okay, now we're going to put it in writing. Okay.
So also in that timeline, you could be getting your own quotes just in case the seller is going to refuse to do any repairs. And you, at that point, when they say no on everything, you will at least know, because in this type market, I mean, I guess some people are obviously taking houses that have, have issues.
Heck yeah. No, it's really important to have numbers in your head, because something I've said to buyers before. So I submit my response today. Seller says, no, we're not doing anything. And I say, okay, Christy's my buyer. I say, okay, Christy, you're the buyer. We found that the roof needs to be replaced probably in 5 years. That's going to be about $8,000. And I've already called my roofer, and the roofer's like, yeah, probably about $8,000. I'm not having my roofer go out there and give me a quote. It's 5 years, the roofer's not going to do that. But he's like, yeah, probably around $8,000 for that size of a house. Oh, and also the water heater is really old and will probably need to be replaced. That's about $1,500. So Christy, would you pay another $9,500 for this home? No? Okay, perfect. We can terminate. No, but I guess I would pay an extra $5,000 for the home. Okay, so you'd be okay with a $4,500 credit, right? Start talking this way with the buyer. Normally what I do, the buyer wants a lot on the first one, and then the seller responds. And now the pressure's really on with your buyer. You're like, okay, we've got options here. We can say, okay, we'll accept their counteroffer. We can say we're going to terminate, or we can counter them again. But just know the seller doesn't have to do anything. They can go back on the market. And right now, even though inventory's increased, we're still at about 6 sellers for 1 buyer. Opposite. 6 buyers for 1 seller. So most buyers are not really inclined to do a lot of work. Okay. Okay, so there's other timelines that are important. The other big one that I want you guys to keep track of, if you're on the selling side specifically, is the timelines on the 22A. So we've talked about this before. So I apologize. This is kind of redundant to other things we've discussed, but I want to talk specifically about section 2 of the 22A. Okay, there's two different options. When you write an offer, you can check this box or this box. If you don't check either, then it's A. Okay, so let's say you check this box and you said 21 days. If you're the seller, if you're representing the seller, I'm going to go into my calendar. You guys are going to see my messy calendar here. Oh my word. We got mutual acceptance today, 21-day financing timeline. That would be 7/14/21. I'm going to put something in here. 22 AR due Christy Hall, whatever. Again, I'm saying Christy's my seller. I'm just using you as an example, Christy. Okay, so now I know as of on the 21st day, what this is saying, I can send the 22 AR to the seller, to the buyer. Let's look at the 22 AR. $22 AR, you just check this box and you send it. It says seller requests the buyer waive their financing contingency as provided in paragraph 2 of the 22A. Buyer does not waive their financing contingency, seller may terminate this agreement. Okay, what that's saying, I want to send that if I represent a seller, because what it's saying is, excuse my language, shit or get off the pot, buyer. That's what you're saying, right? You're saying it's been 21 days, barring the appraisal, your financing should be good. So I want you to waive your financing. And if you don't waive your financing, we at least have the right to back out now at any time, which is seller, as you know, the seller can't back out for just about any reason in this transaction. They can say no on an inspection request. They still can't back out. They're just saying, no, we're not going to fix anything, right? So I put that in my calendar if I represent a seller. Now, if I represent the buyer, I don't put this in my calendar because I don't have to do anything at 21 days. It doesn't really matter. It only matters if the seller sends that to us. If I represent the buyer though, and I check this box, 21 days, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to talk to my lender probably around the 17th, 14 days. And I'm going to say, hey, lender, just a reminder, our financing is automatically waived as of the 24th. How are we looking? Are our buyers really solid? You have everything you need. And he's like, oh no, I'm still waiting on a tax return. And if that tax return isn't what they said it was, then they may not qualify for the home. Okay, we got to get that done in the next 7 days because we need to terminate due to financing by the 24th. Does that make sense? And so if you do check this box and you have whatever the amount of days is, make sure you're communicating with the lender because unfortunately, there are lazy lenders out there. And a lot of times we don't pick the lender, right? We never actually pick the lender. A lot of times they don't go with someone we refer who's good and they'll go with freaking Rocket Mortgage. I'm sorry, that's probably inappropriate to say, but so slow. And I mean, let's just, Rocket Mortgage is the Walmart of loans. Good prices, horrible service.
They're the worst.
Okay, thank you. They are. So you want to make sure if you've checked this box that your buyer is like, the only way they're losing financing at this point is they lose their job or they die. Sorry, being blunt, but that's the only way they're going to lose financing at this point. The lender better have everything in order so that they're saying, okay, all our T's are crossed and I's are dotted. I always say that backwards. I'm so glad I said it right. All our T's are crossed and I's are dotted and we're good. So that when it's automatically waived at this 21 days, we're good. And again, yes, your buyer could still lose their job. In that case, they're probably not worried about their $5,000 earnest money. They're probably worried about a lot of things, right? Okay, I digress. So that's the other contingencies to be aware of. 7 days before closing, I have a standard email. Well, I used to actually. Sarah does all my transactions now. But Sarah has a standard email that goes out 7 days before. If you're not using Sarah, I really encourage you to make an email. What your email should contain, and Sarah, I'll let you speak up if you think I missed something. But hey, Christy, congratulations. We're about to close on this home in 7 days. Just a reminder, Title and Escrow should be reaching out to you any day now to schedule a signing appointment. Also, I resend the, can't remember what the pamphlet is, but the pamphlet that talks about wire fraud. I say, reminder, this is the time that scammers will call you and say, hey, Christy, I want to make sure that this is your social security number. I'm with your lender, right? Anything seems fishy, don't give confidential information over the phone or via email unless you're positive you know who it came from. I talk about, we're going to do a final walkthrough the day before closing. Sarah, help me out. What am I missing here? If you're representing the buyer, what goes in that email?
Okay, so you want to remind them to make sure they've set up their homeowner's insurance, because that can delay closing, especially if sometimes they require that a binder be in. Utilities to check the day after moving in, and that's important to remind people of because they tend to want to do that beforehand, and in most cases you will not be able to do that. And then I know my version has the don't forget I'm going to be sending you a request for a review, because then you're priming them to expect that to come along. So that's a good step. And the other thing I want to correct you on is that if you're not using Sarah as a TC, you should use Sarah as a TC.
I also wanted to mention that MoveEasy can start your utilities and set that up for you.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so that's what goes in that last email. And then on the seller side, it's going to be really similar. You're going to say, hey, make sure you call a utility company, tell them the day after closing to cancel utilities. Seller is responsible through the day of closing, right? So if you close on the 22nd, they're responsible through 22nd, 23rd, it should be off. It's the buyer's responsibility to reactivate it. Let your insurance company know as a seller that you are no longer needing to insure that property as of the end of the 22nd. And so on. Remind them, buyer is going to probably do a final walkthrough. Remind them that the home is supposed to be in broom swept condition. It doesn't have to be professionally clean, but it's supposed to be neat and tidy. Remind them that they have to be out of the property at the very latest by 9 p.m. on the closing date. If they are there at 9:01, they are trespassing. They cannot leave anything. Those are the important ones. Lastly, as the listing broker, I'm probably going to schedule the sign to be taken down, and I'm going to, I'm actually not going to coordinate the buyer's final walkthrough. A lot of buyer's agents don't do that. I don't know why. You always should. So it's up to them to call me about that, and then make sure you closer to the closing date say, hey, what's the plan for getting keys? Buyer's broker says, hey, we're going to come get keys at 5 o'clock, and then you come get the lockbox after that. Or if you're going to get the lockbox ahead of time, you might be able to work out handing the keys to the broker ahead of time. Those are the important ones. I felt like I had one more thing to say. Okay, I do. So now I'm going to go to, I'm not sure if you guys know this, but I kind of like spreadsheets. So I have a spreadsheet that this is how I keep track of my active clients. I really encourage you to have a CRM, but this is for when you have active to close transactions, okay? So I've got 4 tabs down here. I think, can you guys see all this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. We got pre-listing and active listings, active buyers, pending transactions, and sold. And then you can have sold 2020, sold 2029, etc. Okay. So pre-listing and active, these are random. I didn't put addresses in. I didn't fill this out completely. This is all random. Okay. So I have the seller's name, the address, the projected list price, or if it's listed, the actual list price. The commission, this is important. I mean, let's be honest, we're all in this to make money, right? This is important to keep track so that you know what's in your pipeline. This is how much money in this hypothetical situation I have in my pipeline, right? What is my list date? So in this case, I listed this home on 5/15. I listed this home on 5/30. These are only active listings or listings that are going to be active soon. Have I sent out the disclosure bundle? Yes or no? Is title ordered? Yes, not ordered, fidelity, you know, however you want to track this. Listing paperwork, X for me, that's how I track it. Completed, sent out for signing, not complete. Have I ordered the sign? Yes, I've ordered those signs, not complete, ordered photos. And this is something that I added about a year ago. That's really helpful. It reminds me to stay in contact, especially with like this hypothetical person who's listing on, it's a horrible, we wouldn't list on the 4th of July. It's a random date. But last contact was 6/1. They're getting their home ready to list. I'm not thinking about it, but it's good to be able to go in. I go into the spreadsheet every single working day and normally a day or two on the weekend. And sometimes I'll just go over here and I'll sort by last contact. I'll be like, oh my gosh, I haven't spoken to this guy since 6/1. I should contact them and say, hey, how's it going? It's been, like, hey, we're still active and we should talk about a price drop. This is just for note purposes to be like, oh yeah, I haven't contacted them in a while. That's just a personal preference. Notes are, you know, if you have any notes like spoke about price, whoops, price drop on 6/9, right? And then I love to track lead source. Lead source is so important because at the end of the year, you can go through and look at all your closings, which I'll get to that tab in just a second down here. But you can look at all your closings and see, okay, where did my leads come from? I got 3 closings from social media. I got 2 closings from open houses. I got 1 closing from mailers, and I got 5 closings from past clients or referrals. That's so helpful because you can be like, holy cow, I'm spending $500 a month on mailers, which is $6,000 a year, and I only got 1 closing. Maybe I should cut back on my mailers and spend more money on what I was doing, getting the most business from. Does that make sense? That's why I keep track of lead source. It's just for your purposes. So at the end of the year, you can be like, wow, I'm getting all my leads from social media. I need to just focus on social media. Maybe, but that's kind of the idea there.
So if we're not good at spreadsheets, is there any way we can get a copy of this?
Oh yeah, I'm going to send this spreadsheet. Everybody can have a copy of this.
Okay, thank you.
You
Absolutely.
need to actually send it to me.
Yes, we'll do. Okay. I have a list for active buyers. So they're not pending. These are people who are, and these are not like someone who says, yeah, I want to buy a home next year. This is people who are actively in the process of buying. Okay. So I have last name, price range, commission. Again, I want to keep track. Quick formula, by the way. This is super, super simple. I didn't have my totals here. Easy way to get totals. You go equals, sum, parentheses, and you drag the cells and then close it off. Does that make sense? Equals, sum, parentheses, oops, drag the cells. So I know I have $77,000 in buyers coming up. This would be nice if this really was my spreadsheet. Okay, so I have the price range, the commission amount. This is not a spreadsheet I'm sharing with my clients, by the way. This is just for me. It's good to know what my pipeline is. Pre-approved, oh, also, we're all adults here, but really important. You don't go calculate this number and this number and this number and say, oh, I've got, $150,000 coming in the next 3 months. I'm going to go spend $150,000. Don't spend money until it's in your account. Sorry, not trying to be annoying, but really important. Pre-approved amount. You can say pre-approved or pre-approved amount, however you want to do this. But this is like, okay, they're pre-approved at 600, but they told me they want their payment to be around the 550 range, like whatever their payment would be for 550, right? So that's a different number, but it's good to know what is their max. And these 2 hypothetical people are not yet pre-approved. And I could also say sent to Craig Benson, whatever, right? You could say that, but they're not yet pre-approved. Once they're pre-approved, I put in what they're pre-approved for. Ideal closing. If they have so again, I'm being hypothetical here. If this person's like, yeah, I want to close sometime in July. I want to close sometime in September. You'd put that there, okay? Disclosure sent. This is, again, also just kind of a checklist. That's the point of this. Have I put them on an auto search yet? Last contact, notes, lead source. Pretty self-explanatory. And guys, this spreadsheet is not like the one way to do business. This is how I do it that works for me. And I think of new things to add all the time, right? Like the last contact was something I just added recently because it was like, I was forgetting, when did I contact them? And I looked through my emails and like, holy shit, it's been a month. Sorry, I need to stop swearing in these. But it's like, I added that so I could be like, oh my gosh, it was a reminder, a checklist, right? Okay, once anyone from here or from here goes pending, you just take the cell right here, copy that cell. I'm going to paste it right here. Okay, so now we're pending. So I got Schaefer, seller, address 123 ABC Street, pending price. What are we actually pending at? Gross commissions. Again, this is another easy formula. Equals sum, parentheses, I'm going to click this, times 0.025. And it calculates it. So you don't have to pull out your calculator. Mutual acceptance was today, hypothetically, 6/3. Earnest money is due in 2 days. So I'm going to go to I always go to my calendar, guys. I don't do it in my head. I go Friday, Saturday is a no, Sunday is a no, Monday's not a holiday. It's due on Monday. Perfect. Right back in, 3/7. We have a 3-day inspection timeline. 1, skip, 2, 3. Okay, perfect. 6/8. Closing date, whatever. 7/3, and so on. Oops, I did that wrong. 7/3, and so on. The reason I like to have these tabs here, the cross broker, the escrow, and the lender, is it's kind of nice to be able to go in when you have a lot of transactions going. It's not, if you have one transaction going, you're like, yeah, I know who I'm working with. But if you've got 3 transactions going, you mix them up a little bit. So it's nice to be able to just go, oh yeah, WFG. What I do is I go WFG, Carol Robson for the closer, right? Lender, whatever, Caliber, Craig Benson, right? Just so you can really quickly be like, oh yeah, that's who I'm working with. And then you can go to your email and write a quick email to them, and you don't have to go open your contract to try and find past emails. I know it sounds silly. It's really easy it's really nice to have this. I'm telling you, it saves you a lot of time. Again, I still put last contact here. I almost think last contact here is like almost the most important place to have it, because using our transaction timeline, what happens in the transaction timeline is we get mutual acceptance. We're like, get your earnest money in, let's do the inspection, let's negotiate the inspection. And we got about 3 weeks of downtime where there's like nothing going on. We're waiting for the appraisal and we're twiddling our thumbs. And for us, we're like, oh, that's cool. I'm working with my other clients. Everything's good. That one's on cruise control. But your buyer is freaking out. They're like, are we still going to close? What's happening? Can I get the moving truck? So I am absolutely contacting my clients once a week, probably every 3 days, honestly, just saying, hey, Christy, it's been a couple days. Just want to let you know, we're still waiting on the appraisal. Everything's going well. If your lender asks for anything, just make sure you're getting that in right away so that we're, staying on pace. If you have any questions, let me know. Texts are fine. You don't need to call them every 3 days, but text or email every 3 days, I really would encourage you to do that. And the point of this spreadsheet is this is a fluid document. This is something that I'm always, I have it up on my computer every single day throughout the entire day I'm working. And when I have lulls, I'll just go in and be like, yeah, we're good. And I'll also sometimes be like, just for a day, go like, okay, I've covered these for the day, and just kind of highlight them. Like I'm done. So I can quickly go in, okay, I still haven't contacted these 2 people in a while. Oh, but I contacted them yesterday. We're probably good. You know what I mean? That's up to you. Just whatever works for you. I love spreadsheets because they're so easy to just, you can sort by them. Like, again, I can go up here. I can go sort A to Z. You see what I did there, guys? I just clicked this little box right here, sort A to Z, and it sorts by the most recent, the ones that are closing the soonest, right? I can sort by the last contact date and see who I haven't contacted in the longest amount of time, whatever you want to do there. Notes, again, normally blank, but if you have something that you just want to note there, and the lead source. Okay, lastly, sold. This is where you want to transition them to a CRM, but I would encourage you, if you have a CRM, to still keep track of your solds in here, because it's really easy. Again, all I do here, this transaction close, I copy that, I go into my sold spreadsheet, I paste it, put in the address, whatever. These are off by a little bit, but I'm going to go, I'm just moving these over here. I'm going to put the close date was 6/4 and the lead source. And you can just erase those, because again, not every column translates to the next spreadsheet. That was super easy. And now really quickly, if you're trying to get a loan and the lender's like, you personally as a real estate broker, you're trying to get a loan and the lender's like, how much money have you made this year? I can go right now, if somebody asks me, and tell them exactly how much money I've made. Done. Right? It's really helpful to have this. And also, as you start to get more experience and you have 2020, 2019, 2018, it's really encouraging to be like, wow, 2018, I made 50,000. 2019, I made 80,000. You can see how you're building up, which is awesome, right? It's really helpful. Also, if you're setting goals, like we talked about at the beginning of the year, this is like it's a huge help. So, I hope the spreadsheet is helpful. I'll send it to Rachel, and Rachel will send it out to everybody. But I really encourage you to take the spreadsheet, make it your own. If you think a certain line item is not important to you, you want to add line items, add them. If you have questions about spreadsheets, Andrew and I are both really good at spreadsheets, and we can help you with them.
Isaac?
Yes, ma'am.
Can I discuss some of the marketing things that I suggest that you would do after closing?
Absolutely. That's actually the last part of the meeting.
I thought you were wrapping up. I'm sorry.
No. I'm not even going to go back to the slides because I don't really love the slides for the last part of the meeting. So I'm just going to stop sharing. And yeah, this last part of the meeting, last few minutes, let's talk about best practices for now. Now you've closed the transaction, and Robin, I'm going to pass this off to you in 1 second. Okay, I've closed the transaction. No, let's say we've done the final walkthrough. Now it's the day of closing and we're on our way to meet our clients. Go, Robin.
Okay, so, I'm a new broker. I'm establishing these habits myself, but I get into the practice of a day or two before closing, I write all of my thank you notes. So I write them to the lender, title, the referring agent, if there was one, the other agent on the side of the transaction, and basically anyone who helped with the transaction. I get that ready to go, so they should receive them a day or two after closing. I go through and I make sure all of my receipts are in order for the transaction. So any gas logging, mileage logging, closing gifts, marketing costs, try to get that wrapped up and written down for the transaction. I wish I was better about staying on top of that stuff during the transaction, but I'm not, so I have to remind myself to do it at the end.
Oh, and Robin, can I add that stuff like that can also be thrown into SkySlope so that you have it in the future and it's right there with the transaction?
Like the checklist of what to remember to do?
No, like your receipts and different documentation.
Awesome.
Anything you have that belongs to the transaction, if you have a digital version, you can put it right there in SkySlope for yourself.
That's amazing. Yeah, I had no idea. So that's good to know.
You're welcome.
As far as marketing after the listing, right? You can do postcards. You can do, what I would recommend is I would probably do door knocking flyers. So obviously a lot of people aren't going to be answering. It's still COVID times. If you do knock on someone's door, make sure to step back a few feet. But you can have something that Rachel and I make up for you about, hey, I just sold this home in the area. It sold for this much over asking. My sellers had this to say if they've given you a review. And then you can just leave those on people's doorsteps. I think following up and setting dates in your CRM to reach out to your buyers after closing. So, you want to catch them on their house anniversary. You want to catch them around the holidays. Keep reminders in your calendar or CRM to stay on top of those clients so that when they do go to sell that property that they bought, you're still the one that they're in contact with. In addition to that, there are advertisements that you can post on Facebook, Instagram, etc., where you can do ads about the fact that the transaction is closed. You can pay, not HomeSpotter, but what is the other one called, Isaac?
I'm not homes.
There's HomeSpotter, HomeSnap. So HomeSnap will run ads for you. It is pretty expensive. I think that if you're kind of a newbie who's starting out, just organic ads from your business page might be a better bet. And then, yeah, Isaac, is there anything else that you can think of off the top of your head that I'm missing?
No, again, spreadsheets are probably not the best when it comes to post. So way before they're buying and after they've bought, because spreadsheets are very easy to, okay, so you got 50 past clients. It's really easy to lose some, right? Unless you're really on top of your spreadsheet. CRMs are better at reminding you. They'll say, hey, it's been 3 months since you've reached out to this person. They're your assistant, right? So I encourage you to not be like me and use the spreadsheet and actually use a CRM when it comes to past clients, because CRMs are way better at staying in touch with past clients. And really consider setting up, Sync has this all set up. You can set up automated emails that go out every 3 months, like a newsletter, and they make content. You can have it, you can check it to send a happy birthday. This is not really personable, but perfect's the enemy of done. And if you know that you're horrible at follow-up, you can put a client after they close on a deal into Sync and check boxes that says on their birthday, send them a happy birthday message. On their anniversary of closing on their home, send them a happy anniversary on closing your home. whatever. They have templates. You don't even have to you just have to put them in there. So if you are the type of person who's not going to really be on top of your past clients, automate it. Put it in a CRM so it will do it for you. That's really the best piece of advice I can give you, because if you think like you're going to do a better job in the CRM, you better be sure you are, or else you're going to lose people. I've told the story many times from earlier this year how I lost a client who bought $1.2 million home, who I sold a home to last freaking year. And I stayed in touch with them. I contacted them twice in the year between I helped them buy a home last year. I sent them a Christmas card. I wished them Merry Christmas. And I contacted them like 3 months after closing, said, how's everything going? I thought I was staying in touch. Apparently not good enough. I missed out on 1.2 times times 2.5%. It's a lot of money. And I truly believe if I had been better at staying in touch with them, I would have an extra $25,000 in my bank account. I just did quick math. I don't know if that's exactly right, but it's like, it's crazy. We're not talking like, oh, small thing if you miss out on it. And also, by the way, when you help someone buy a home and they need to buy a home again, that's 2 commissions. They need to buy and sell most likely. So like, this is truly, I say this all the time. So it's like when I say, oh yeah, that's my favorite movie. It's like I say about like 50 movies. The most important thing, like the riches are in the follow-up. You have to be just ridiculously good at not losing clients. And I also use this example all the time. We keep track of all Craig's transactions, and every year, about 80% of them are past clients or referrals from past clients, because he's very good at keeping in touch with his past clients. That's all he does. And he's earned it because it's been 20 years of building his book of business. And he does, he's top 3 in our brokerage, but all he does, his marketing budget is minuscule. All he does is he just stays in touch with his clients. And that is super exciting. That should be very exciting to you guys, because that means you guys could be making $250,000 to $300,000 a year in 5-10 years just off of past client referrals. I mean, that's incredible. So don't lose sight of how important that is.
Another thing that I forgot that I like to do that sort of sets me apart, if my buyer, I tell them that I'm happy to, I'll take a picture of them at closing, and then I'll tell them I'll send out a postcard to your entire sphere on my dime, and I will send them out for you. If you provide me their names and addresses and contact info, I will send them a just moved postcard. And then on that postcard, I talk about where they've moved to. I talk about my review that the client left me, and then I try to stay in touch with anyone who does reach out from that postcard. But if you ever need help with coming up with ideas on how to stay in touch, that's something I'm pretty good at. I'm happy to help you brainstorm the best way that suits your needs to stay in touch with your former clients.
I love it. Well, I hope this was helpful. I will send this spreadsheet to Rachel. Again, if you missed the beginning of the meeting, really encourage you to show up to Tuesday's meeting and Thursday's meeting next week. Those will be really good meetings. I actually have a listing going active next Thursday, so we're going to use, it'll be great because we'll use the title reports from that and really be able to break them down completely. So anyways, Tuesday is going to be a legal meeting with Seth Goodstein, who's a real estate attorney. We can talk all about new landlord-tenant laws and how that affects us as residential selling real estate brokers. And then Thursday is going to be with Andrew Helgeson of Fidelity Title, talking about title reports and how to decipher them. So, and then
Tuesday after that, I'm doing everything all about reviews, getting your Google business set up, getting your Facebook set up, getting your Zillow, Realtor.com profile set up, how to solicit for reviews, and how to follow up with reviews.
I'd like to follow up with you. I'd like to follow up with you on that, if I could.
Yeah, of course. And then Rachel's also going to be talking about Rate My Agent and what is coming up. She's just going to give us a little teaser about the new One Suite that is the changes to our CRM and sync, etc.
Awesome sauce. And then, yeah, next Thursday will be our last Thursday meeting for at least a couple months. We'll still have some Tech Tuesdays, as Robin and Rachel we're talking about. But we're going to kind of lessen the office meetings a little bit around the summer because we all
are busy.
Yeah, I'd rather be outside.
Isaac, before you leave, I have a couple questions. I don't, really want to Zoom with them, but
all right.
Sounds good.